Coming up on today's episode of PSN, Mark Arendz, Paralympic medalist, World Cup champion, and newly minted World Championship gold medalist, joins the show, talk about his success in Para Biathlon and Para Nordic. Let's get started.
Welcome to Parasport Nation with Alex Smyth and Nathan Clement.
Welcome into Parasport Nation. I'm your host, Alex Smyth. As always, I'm joined by co-host and Paralympian Nathan Clement. Nathan, how are you rehabbing your ankle? How are you feeling still being on the injury report there?
It's a day-by-day process. Right now, I've had a great last weekend where I was able to get the riding and get the training in that I needed, but especially the last couple of days, my body's had a little bit of a bounce back and gone the other direction. So it's one of those things where it's just being patient with the process. And coming up this weekend, I'm heading out of Vancouver to Toronto for an event for Canadian people with disabilities, and it's going to be a great time just to get away, see a lot of teammates, see a lot of Paralympians, but also let my body recover. So when I get back here, I'm able to have a full slate of training, hopefully, and really be able to build and prep for some upcoming training camps and races in the near future.
You got a full slate of training. We got a full slate on today's show, so let's get right into it because we had a chance yesterday to chat with Mark Arendz, 11-time Paralympic medalist, World Cup champion, World Championship gold medalist from yesterday's competition. He's joined the show to share his thoughts on the success he's had and what drives him to compete every time he goes out. Here's the interview. Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you for having me.
First off, congratulations. It's been a busy day for you already, capturing gold. How are you feeling? How is the championship, World Championships going so far for you? I mean, it's pretty good returns early on.
Exactly. There's not really any better way to start a World Championships than with a world title and to hear the national anthem, see the Canadian flag raised the highest. I know my race wasn't perfect. There's definitely some things I can work on, but including missing one on the range, I'm getting the grief from all the teammates. I'm the only one to miss today, so I'll take it for this day.
Mark, it's a testament to your athletic career and everything you've done to even have moments where you say missed a shot and you're able to bounce back and still have that resolve to come out with a gold medal. What do you think attributes that success to yourself?
I think I've been doing this for way too many years to count. I think it's 19 seasons now. So it's getting up there. But I think to me, the big process, it's a dual balance between consistency and the process. So going through that process of knowing what I need to do, regardless of what situation I'm in, whether it's, it's not the best skiing conditions. So what can I do? What's my process in order to make the most out of the skis? Okay, it's windy. What do I do right now to make sure that I hit the targets? So it's going through those elements of process, making sure that I am as best prepared as I can be, and then adapting to those pieces in the moment, and the consistency to do that. I think those two together, the process and the consistency, has really helped be able to perform in any circumstance, course, weather, all these different things that can get thrown at you.
You've won 4 of 5 World Cup events. You just won gold in the World Championships today. Why are you on such a roll right now, and how is this helping to set you up for Milano Cortina a year down the road?
To me, that's the kind of the focus of this event, this World Championships. This is our first dress rehearsal or final dress rehearsal for the games in 2026. So that's really, for me, it's about coming to the start line, knowing how I've prepared for the last few weeks. Is this what I want to repeat next year because it's gone well, or do I want to make little tweaks along the way? There's a lot of journaling, a lot of debriefing, and a lot of plan making to make sure that this happens. And then I'll reflect on all these pieces every day, and then kind of as a wrap up later on, in a week's time or something like that, when I'm back home for a few days, and be like, okay, this is what I really enjoyed, this is what I really worked for me, and being self-critical on those pieces. But this World Championships is that final dress rehearsal to make sure that everything is ready for next year, 13 months from now, I guess.
You were recently in Italy and your team was for the test events for the Paralympic Games. What was that experience like, being there, being at the venue, and any big takeaways from the facilities or the environment for Milano Cortina?
Oh, massive. Lots of takeaways. Some I probably won't share with everyone, but no, I think it was really good to actually have a competitive experience on those tracks for Milan Cortina in the Val di Fiemme Valley, which will be our venue for cross country and for biathlon. And getting to experience the course, see what it looks like, already see kind of the some of the feature elements of the trail, and be like, okay, how can we work on this? How can we replicate this in Canmore or nearby? There's a few things that are just a little different. One being the range. It's a kind of situated in a very unique area circumstance, and so it's something that we would look to test and try to replicate over the next few months to just get a little bit more experience with it.
Can you talk a bit about how you and the rest of your team really have kind of put up some impressive wins over this past year and a half or so? Because it's not just you finding success, it's a lot of your teammates are making those podium runs, and for yourself, it's that's got to feel good. It's not just you excelling, it's everyone as a whole, the unit. And as you mentioned, when you missed that shot earlier, your teammates are giving you a bit of a hard time. It's that competitive nature as well.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing a little bit of a veteran team as well, and with an endurance, technically heavy sport of cross-country skiing and biathlon, you need a little bit of time to become one of the best in the world. And we're seeing that hard work over those years is paying off with the consistency of the results, not only for myself, but for teammates. And I think that's really exciting to go forward as we gear towards this, all coming together for this final push towards Milan Cortina in 26. And it's really exciting to see a result as I'm warming up and see a teammate go for gold, succeed, have those best results and first ever results as we get closer and start that momentum. So it's always special to have those team successes like we did in Val di Fiemme. That was a fantastic day starting off that event. So here's hoping there's a lot more of those.
In Para Biathlon, it's a sport where the courses often vary and change dependent on your location. How do you find that consistencies in those courses and in those races, although there might be different ascents, different descents, and just really trying to find a through line or a connecting line as you go into races and as you prep for different competitions?
Exactly. I think the big piece is having the awareness and knowledge of yourself. What is my experience? What is my strengths with my impairment? Using one pole, where do I have an advantage against others? Where do I have a disadvantage? And trying to maximize the advantage in areas and sections of courses and minimize time lost to when I might be at a disadvantage. And just trying to find those weaknesses, find those seconds everywhere is key to that success on any course. We have drastically different courses between last week in Val di Fiemme and this week in Pokljuka, and it's trying to finding those rhythms, those sections where I excel at and try to drive even further and know that, hey, I can do this section, so challenge everyone else to catch up.
I'm curious as well, because beyond just the actual design of the courses themselves, it's actually the conditions of the snow and how that can play a factor in your success during a competition. When you're thinking back to being on that course in Italy, as it is that same course that you're going to be competing on at the Paralympics. What kind of insight, how did you feel being on the course when it comes to the snow conditions there? Because elsewhere in Slovenia, there's been issues around the Para-Alpine canceling downhill events because of snow conditions. So what was the conditions like there and how are they in Slovenia right now?
So Val di Fiemme was almost ideal for me, actually. It was warm, but when we were racing, it was still that firm, harder packed snow, almost icy. But that was kind of where, as a bigger guy, I can still excel. I can actually put down the power that I can generate and be at my most efficient. When it's a little warmer, which we believe Val di Fiemme will become, it might be a little bit more challenging. So I really have to turn my focus towards being very efficient in the slower, deeper conditions of the slush. Here so far in Slovenia, we have a kind of a mix. We're kind of tucked into this little tiny valley, and there's just enough snow on the race course. I think they really did a lot of work to bring in man-made, manage the snow, that natural snow they had, to have just enough for the course itself, nothing more. There's no extra trails here, but it is really good conditions for what we need and what we require for biathlon.
After the competitions are done in the 2025 calendar, what does the off season look like for you, and kind of like what's the process of a Nordic cross country and biathlon skier going into the off season, getting ready for 1 year out of a Paralympic Games?
I think the big one for me is kind of taking that break, respecting the body, giving it the time. It might only be 2 weeks. I don't think I really want to take any more than that. So we kind of get the month of April less scheduled, a little bit more, see what happens. You wake up, you don't feel like doing anything. Okay. Or you wake up and you're like, yeah, I'll go for a run, or there's great weather, there's great snow still in Canmore or nearby, and we'll go for a ski. And it's just kind of unstructured, just kind of more of a mental break, but enjoying being active rather than the more structured preparation that we will see for the remaining 11 months. And for me, I also like to just focus on debriefing from the last season, focusing on where do I want to put some really focused periods throughout the season, and create that plan as we go to gear towards the games. I've almost created the last 6 weeks and completed the last 6 weeks before the games. I've already made that plan, but it's now fitting a little bit ahead of that. So the fall and the summer, how to fit those pieces in.
And for when you're looking towards those games, what are your goals right now coming into it? Obviously, you're excelling. Is it podium finishes every single race? Are you looking for a certain type of medal? Are you just looking to excel well despite the kind of where you're placing? What are your goals and mindset as you look forward to next year?
So for me, my main written goal is that I want to be able to perform mentally, physically, and have everything ready when I touch the start line for any race that I choose to go. I'm not a fan of necessarily putting a result goal towards it. I definitely want to be competitive in every race I start, and I will only start races that I'm competitive in. But it's also just trying to go day to day with the races that has been really successful for me in the past in Pyeongchang and Beijing. And it's just, okay, this is my plan. This is what I have to do today in order to achieve the goal for that day or the next day. And I think that's going to be how I balance it. But my preparation will use the next 13 months so that when I start the finish line, I know I've done everything as best as I can and then perform.
Throughout your career, you've been to so many amazing places and so many amazing locations. Do you have any favorites or most memorable places where you've been able to compete or even train at?
It's really a challenging question to answer. And I think just there are different emotions for different venues. Like there's one venue in Finsterau in Germany. I was not racing sick or not able to race because I was so sick 2 years in a row. And it kind of made me nervous about the following year with the third year, which would be World Championships, where I actually had a very successful World Championships. So, there's a lot of mixed emotion about each venue. And I think each venue has its own characteristics, own positives and negatives. So it's really hard to kind of narrow it down to some of my favorite. I think some of my best training I've done is New Zealand in August. We go down when it's their winter, the Southern Hemisphere's winter. And I think that's one of the better training camps that I've been on. It's just a really pleasant atmosphere to put in some big hours. But there's Mammoth Lakes in the fall has always been a really favorite. Just one, because I enjoy the training there and the atmosphere at altitude, and there's just for races it's hard to tell. Sometimes you have bad races and you're like, I want to come back here and actually have better races, and other times you're like, well, this place again. But I think Finland, we went to Finland for the first World Cup this year. That was my 18th trip to Finland. It's like, okay, this is getting a little old, but it's a great venue when the snow is there and the courses are fast.
One question we love to ask athletes, especially those who have been competing at a high level for a long time, who would be on your Mount Rushmore? Now, because you're a two-sport competitor with Nordic and Para Biathlon, you can choose which direction you want to go, Para Biathlon or Para Nordic. Who would be on your Mount Rushmore for those sports?
I think I'd start with Brian McKeever. I think he would be right up there. He has done both sports, and it took me a little bit to beat his records in biathlon, but I finally put those to bed. I think Terry Fox, Rick Hansen would also be up there. And then I think there is a kind of a toss-up. There's been a lot of really good biathletes and a mountain biker, actually. It would be kind of a toss-up. I'm not sure who I'd put on there, whether it's Johannes Stinges Bø from Norway as a biathlete, Martin Fourcade, or Nino Schurter from mountain biking. I think those three, what I really admire about their skill is their longevity of careers and their the consistency of high performance for many, many years. And I think that is something special that I've tried to emulate, and those would definitely be up there for performances.
One thing we love to know with different athletes we ask is, would there be anyone that you would hope, or you could choose anyone, any actor, who would you want to play you in a movie?
Ooh, I've not actually given that a thought. I'd love to think that Ryan Reynolds would do a really good job, but I don't know if that would actually just fit the my personality as well as I would want it to. I think Jim Carrey. I think he would have the body type and the kind of the character that I would like to have represent me.
Well, that's a great response and a great way to end the conversation. Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us, and best of luck for the rest of the World Championships.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
That was our conversation with newly minted world champion Mark Arendz. Nathan, I found it so fascinating with all the different details that Mark really shares, and it just shows his analytical side. What did you make of him as an athlete, just being able to break things down the way he did in that interview?
It's a testament to him as an athlete and as a person, and it shows why he's had that longevity, but also that success in his career, where if you're winning 11 Paralympic medals, that is quite a testament to yourself, and just how he's always breaking down different courses, different environments, but also he's not looking at it results based. He's looking at the process. He's looking at what he can do as an athlete to get better each day and every day. But I really loved his response and his answer, talking about taking a step back after the season, giving himself that time to rest and time to recover, and really just understand that it's a long year ahead, especially 1 year out of the games. And that's something that so many young athletes, but also high performance and professional para athletes sometimes forget about. It's just that chasing of numbers, that chasing of success too. And that goes into the detailed orientations about the environments, about his locations, and even the snow breakdown, which you found pretty interesting.
Yeah, I just loved it because that shows his personality. I've had the chance to spend a few days with Mark years ago as he was kind of preparing and training for the Beijing Games. And it was really insightful. You know, he's, as you mentioned, such an analytical guy. He can really break things down on that fundamental level. But hearing him talk about the snow conditions and how that impacts his ability to race is like, well, as a bigger guy, you know, when it's that type of slightly crunchy snow, I can do even better because I can put more power down. I can be more confident in the strides I'm taking. Whereas when it's icier, he's like, well, I got to be more efficient in these certain stretches. It's all these little nuances that really set him apart from claiming gold like he did yesterday to not making the podium. Because as, competitive as a sport as Para Biathlon, as Para Nordic is, sometimes those very minute seconds can make all the difference. And that's why, when he talked about missing that one shot on the range, afterwards his team was giving him a bit of a hard time about it. That it's key. It's a penalty if you miss. It didn't affect him in the race, but that's something, as he mentioned, he wants to correct. But I did love that, hearing that camaraderie from the teammates. They're all telling him, hey, we didn't miss on the range, you did. Despite the fact he still comes away with the gold medal. How is the team dynamics for you? And do you relate to that from the cycling side of things, that they're both kind of individual sports, but you have that strong sense of team and camaraderie with your teammates on that side? Explain your kind of experience and what you thought when you heard him say that.
There's a lot of similarities, and especially I hope because the Para-Nordic team and the Para-Nordic squad and their history, they are the gold standard for parasport and a para program, from Brian McKeever, Colin Cameron, Brittany Hudak, Natalie Wilkie, and people like Mark Arendz, where they've gone above and beyond having that success. And especially with our para team, we like to see ourselves and view ourselves as a younger squad, hopefully in our development and in our process, where you're going out there and you might be racing alone. You might be by yourself, but you have teammates there who are going to support you, but also roast you too. And that's half the time about being an athlete, and is that kind of camaraderie, but also that kind of humbling that you get from your teammates time and time again. And that's something so special. And I know for myself, being able to have people who've reached success be a part of your team, be a part of your squad, it fuels you, it motivates you, and it makes you want to see them succeed, but you also want to feel that as well too. And it just adds such a great environment to these locations that you get to go to, these different events that you get to take part in. When everyone's succeeding, when everyone's doing well, it elevates that environment and it elevates that place. And it's just so incredible to be a part of that, because with a lot of individual sports, yeah, when you're racing, you are alone. But in the grand scheme of things, every time outside of that race, you have a massive team around you. And it's so important how you act could affect someone else. So you want to be the best person you can be for yourself, but also for your teammates day in and day out.
Yeah, and I think it also really helps the fact that, as you mentioned, that Para-Nordic, Para Biathlon team, the level of success and that consistency of success. It's every single time you're doing a PSN update and you're talking about the sport, they're reaching the podium. And it's not just one of them. It's multiple members of that team reach the podium. You have that love of success. You can hold each other accountable. You can have those like fun little competitions with each other, trying to push each other to be the best the results are showing. And hopefully they'll carry on into next year. But speaking of which, take it away, Nathan, with the PSN update.
Now, the PSN update.
A major weekend in sports open up with the Para Biathlon World Championships in Slovenia. Canada brings a team of 4 to the Worlds, highlighted by Mark Arendz, Natalie Wilkie, Brittany Hudak in the standing class, while Derek Saplonsky represents the sitting category. Opening on day 1, Arendz and Wilkie won World Championships in their events. In Slovenia, a lot of uncertainty is in the air as 3 of the 5 race days have been canceled due to poor conditions as of recording for the FIS Para-Alpine Championships in Maribor, Slovenia. Keep up to date with PSN to hear what happens on the slopes. Switching to wheelchair rugby, the Calgary Ignite wheelchair rugby tournament gets rolling as teams from Western Canada face off to open up the wheelchair rugby calendar in 2025. Continuing west, Canada's women's next-gen team begins their prep in Richmond, BC, before heading to Japan for the Osaka Cup in mid-February. Over in Glasgow, the 2026 Commonwealth Games program has been announced. Featuring in next year's slate is 5 para events: para athletics, para bowls, 3-on-3 wheelchair basketball, para track cycling, para powerlifting, and para swimming take center stage in July and August 2026. And that's the para sport update.
Nathan, thank you for sharing all that information. I really want to get into the Commonwealth Games because it's such a fascinating multi-sport competition. It's a pretty major regional competition. There's a lot of international teams, a lot of para sports being represented there. What is it about the Commonwealth Games that really stands out to you that makes it unique from some of these other competitions?
It's the fact that you have countries from the British Commonwealth coming together to compete and represent their nations in another multi-sport games, another multi-sport event. I, as an athlete, have never had the privilege or honor of being able to represent Canada at a Commonwealth Games yet, but I've had many friends, many teammates that have had that chance. And even as I know, as a former swimmer, a lot of previous Commonwealth Games legacies have really impacted my own swimming career, being able to access the Saanich Commonwealth Games pool in Victoria, British Columbia, and so many other facilities across Canada. But really with the Commonwealth Games, and what makes it so unique is, especially on the para side, as para has been a recent integration in the last 10, 15 years to the games, the host country actually gets to pick the events that participate. And there's a little bit of gamesmanship that goes on with that, where the host countries are going to pick events that they're most likely going to win gold in, that they're most likely going to perform well in. So it really comes down to countries not hosting to really have to bring their A game when those events come around, because it is a challenge, because you have that home crowd support for that host country, and then you're going into pretty well enemy territory with some of the best athletes. Like, I even know, looking at the program right now going into 2026, especially on the para track cycling side, they have C1 to C3 paracycling, which is a absolute juggernaut for GB or British cycling. So that's going to be quite a challenge, but Canada has some great athletes on that paracycling side, and I know across all those sports they're going to be able to represent Canada and hopefully get on that podium.
That's so interesting. I don't know if I like that the host nation just gets to choose the sports that they get to host and have at the games. Like, I'd like there to be a bit more consistency, a bit more parity in the types of events that are hosting. Because obviously, I mean, Glasgow, they're going to be stacking the deck against you. They're choosing the competitions, as you say, the sports that they're going to excel in. You got to try to take them down. I don't know if I like that. How do you feel about that? Because to me, it makes it feel a bit disingenuous, a bit it just leaves me with an icky feeling almost hearing that.
Yeah, it's definitely a two-sided sword, where when you have your host country being able to choose the events, obviously it can elevate the performances and bring new audiences in, because you're being able to see people from that country, people localized to you, succeeding, and that can help with the audiences. But especially to grow the sport, grow the games, and grow the activities, it really hurts and it squanders it too. I know when I was a swimmer, there were times where they would have different events in my category. For example, as an S7, they had S750 free, and they had a certain standard you had to fit there. I wasn't really a freestyler, but my event was butterfly, and I couldn't go because they were only choosing one athlete from that country, and I just missed out as an S7 50-meter freestyler. And that's where it becomes tricky, is because you really have smaller rosters and smaller squads, but it's one of those things where at the end of the day, you really want to grow and get more opportunities. So they kind of hamper themselves in a way, but still, when you do have these events and you do have that host country able to select, it will bring out the best of the best. And trust me, there's no better feeling than seeing a teammate, seeing someone who was expected not the podium because they have the favorites there from the hosts or different countries, and they go out there and they get a gold, a silver, or a bronze. It's pretty sweet to have that crowd go against you that way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always great to kind of prove the naysayers or beat a stacked deck. But unfortunately, Nathan, we're all out of time. So for everyone at home, thank you for watching and listening. We'll chat with you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Parasport Nation. Like and subscribe to the channel to follow us now.